Okay, well, I got an email to say Walter's coming. That's pretty good.
Colin?
Seen you in a while.
Yeah. How is everybody?
Smell good. You smell like chocolate or something.
I leave chocolate.
I'm like, hang out with me more.
You never want a hug from me when you see me.
You smell like chocolate too, Jerry.
Probably. It is just past Easter.
It's funny, the kids are allowed one egg a day, but somehow there's like more and more missing.
You wouldn't have anything to do with that, would you?
No, not at all. Off to the gym after this. Hey, Phil.
Welcome to Woodstock City Council. It is Thursday, April the 5th. It's a beautiful spring day in Ontario where we have snow on the ground. So Mother Nature's a little confused, and it could be because of the sports teams. We have hockey at the same time as baseball. Maybe Councillor Petter will talk about that later. Getting right down to business, any disclosure of conflict of interest? Seeing none, disclosure of new business, matters arising from the minutes of the March 22nd meeting. Councillor Accioni.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Lauder that the minutes of the regular meeting of Woodstock City Council held on Thursday, March 22nd, 2018 be adopted.
Thank you. You've heard the motion. Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carries unanimous. Our next item is delegations, and we have the Woodstock Soccer Club update. Welcome.
Thanks. All right. You guys hear me okay? Awesome. All right, so my name's Colin McElveen, and I'm just coming back to give you guys an update from our last meeting back in January, and kind of just talk through a few options that we have for the Woodstock Soccer Club. Let's see if this is perfect. So just a bit of history for everybody. The Woodstock Soccer Club began about 41 years ago in 1976. We've grown to over 2,000 youth registrations on an annual basis, both indoor and outdoor, and one of the largest sports organizations in Woodstock. One of our original founders is actually an active member on our board. He's still here today with us. And in honor of him, we also host the annual Walter Kirshner tournament, which has about 90 teams annually across southwest Ontario that join us. Our current summary, just kind of giving you guys the details of where we're at. Over the last 4 years, we've averaged a declining number of registrations on an annual basis of about 7%. Cowan Park is known as a multi-sport facility, and it's not known just as soccer club. We have volleyball, football, sport ball, baseball, and a bunch of other various folks that go in there and use it every day, every week kind of thing. Right now, we don't get any funding from the city of Woodstock for programs. And what I mean by that is going back to the kids. So we get a bunch of funding from you folks for, shoveling snow, removing snow, helping us with some building maintenance and things like that, but nothing that goes back to youth soccer. Overall, if we split out the facility and the Woodstock Soccer Club, the facility probably costs the Woodstock Soccer Club somewhere in the neighborhood of $200,000 to $250,000 a year in costs, over and above our revenue. Woodstock Soccer Club in general, without the facility, would be a net positive income. But with the facility, we're negative income, and you'll see this in the next couple of pages. We're coming to you today because we aren't in a financial position anymore to continue to carry the facility without the help of the City of Woodstock. Updates since last meeting, just so everybody's on the same page. We did go and talk to the Southgate Center about coming on board and working with us on being a partner. There are times, if you will, that they would be using this. The facility would be from 7 till about 4 p.m. And they turned it down as a board when we met with them. And unfortunately, that means that we don't have anybody that's really there generating revenue for us between 7 and 4 o'clock during the day. Our financials haven't improved. We're still forecasting a net loss for 2018. And our registrations continue to be on that similar trend that we've seen in the past 4 years. You can see, here's a chart here so everybody can see it on how those registrations have looked. The blue bar is registrations on an annual basis, and the line, if you will, is how many we've lost on an annual basis. So you can see what we're down year over year. Roughly, just to put it into perspective, about 1% of Woodstock has stopped playing soccer in the last 4 years. Our financials, just so everybody kind of sees the numbers as well. Our registrations, you can see, 2014, we're at 2,500, and we're down now to around 2,000. In 2017, we had 2,017 registrations. Look at that. Our registration revenue, as you can see, has been roughly flat year over year, but our expenses have grown. So what that means is, obviously, costs for maintaining the facility and reduction in our sponsorship dollars and things like that are really costing us on that on those other lines. Overall, over those 4 years, we've probably we have had a reduction in cash of about $205,000, which was set aside for us to go and spend on capital in the future. When we have to repair the indoor turf, when we have to repair outdoor fields, lighting, things like that, which now, we don't have that in our coffers, if you will. We are more than just soccer, like I was alluding to at the beginning. Just in the next 4 months, we've got a bunch of weddings, family reunions, anniversaries booked. Kids use the facility for birthday parties. There's a volunteer fair. We had the Sports Hall of Fame there. The Rec and Leisure Fair was there. Walking track members, they come in every day and walk the track. There's proms and grads. In a couple weeks, there's a United Way dodgeball tournament there, Special Olympics, Big Brothers and Sisters charity events. Like I said, volleyball, football, soccer, sport ball, things like that. So we are more than just a soccer facility, and I know a lot of people still think that we are just the Woodstock Soccer Club, but we're not, right? So one of the things we as a board are looking at, and the board's behind me, is what is our long-range forecast? So here's where we run into issues. We can continue to run at a cash deficit, but we can't do any of this stuff. And what that means is we can't repair the indoor turf when it needs repairing in 5 years. It's probably $400,000 to $500,000. Our outdoor fields need repairing. Brian has worked with us for the last little while and kind of, what our turfs look like and things like that. And there's a report later in the council meeting around things like that. But things do need to get fixed. I mean, it's becoming dangerous for kids as well, right? Our lighting indoors needs to be upgraded. We have some lights in-house right now, but we don't have the means or the ways to go and rent a boom truck to go and put those up and fix the lighting and things like that. The facility is 8 years old now, just like a house. You need to repair it, do some touch-ups, things like that. All those costs are coming into play, right? And we're sitting there kind of looking at our long-range forecast and knowing that that cash is not there to do that. So I've got kind of 3 options for us, and these are kind of city asks, and I'll leave it to you folks to kind of decide what our best path forward is. Sorry, I can't speak right now. So option number 1 is allow us to open up the current contract, which right now is a 20-year contract, and renegotiate the $95,000 payment. That right now, last year we would have been cash flow positive without that payment. As well, similar to what you folks do with Southgate is, a stipend or whatever you want to call it, of somewhere between $150,000 and $200,000 to help us pay for the non-revenue generating times for our staffing and our utility costs and things like that. We need those lights retrofitted and things like that just from a safety perspective and making sure that, everything's up to code, so helping us with things like that. Our northeast field, so there's 2 fields that could turn into 3 at the northeast end of the facility. We had to shut them down because they are too dangerous for kids to play on right now. Helping us with fixing those fields up, and then we can start kind of looking at how to repair the rest of the fields within the facility. Lining of the fields is a big cost to us. I know you guys do that in town right now, and would be helping us with that as well. And then maintaining, right now we have a volunteer who deserves a medal for how much he works out there right now, helping him cut the grass, maintaining the fields and things like that, because right now he's one guy who's a volunteer, and at some point, if Charlie decides to kind of hang up the shoes, if you will, we're in some pretty deep trouble for that. So that's option kind of 1, if you will, on some of our asks. I'll take questions, I guess, at the end if you guys want. Option number 2 would be for the city to take over the facility. Oh, I guess I should do this. Would be to take over the facility and the Woodstock Soccer Club to become a tenant. So our ask would be that we get right of first refusal on the fields, indoor and outdoor. We get the times that we need to right now to run our house league programs and our rep programs. And then obviously, the rest of the city of Woodstock can utilize the facility as they see fit. And then the third option is probably not the right option, but would be to continue as is for now. We know that we are going to run out of cash at some point, and we would just continue to operate the facility as is. And when and if we run out of cash, we would just come back to the city and say, hey guys, we're kind of done, or whatever you want to call it, and how do we want to work through that together? One of the proposals that we have in this scenario is that we would basically shut down the facility, everything but between the hours of 9 to 5, Monday to Friday for the summer, and see how that goes. And why we would do that is because that's when we generate revenue for soccer, which would mean we would have to call a bunch of weddings and cancel them, call some anniversary parties and things like that, because those would be outside of those hours. Would be very unfortunate to have to do that, but that would be something that we'd have to look at. In this option, the board and I would look at it as running a business, and if you're not generating revenue in those 2 hours, then we're shutting it down, and that would be how we would work it. And that's pretty much the end of my presentation. I asked for more time because I figured there'd be a bunch of questions, but before I do that, a couple of thank yous. David, Brian, and Patrice, I really want to thank you guys for all your help in all this. It's been a long road, but thank you for that. Our council behind us, our Woodstock board, it's been a tough 12 months, if you will, of us trying to figure out what to do here, and it's some pretty tough decisions, and we're coming to you guys not because we haven't thought of everything else, but because of this is where we're at, and then obviously the council members. So I'll leave it up to you guys to kind of make the right decision. So
Thank you. Questions of council. Councillor Tate.
Through your worship, to the presenter, I'd like to thank the group again. You've done an amazing job, and also give you credit for looking for partners. It's unfortunate that it didn't go through, but you guys made the initial step towards that and realizing that there's problems. So just with your options, number 2, I mean, obviously we don't want to lose soccer. Nobody wants to lose soccer, but we want the facility up to where it should be and the fields up, so that helps the soccer club. To me, that sounds like a good suggestion. Mm-hmm. Is there other issues with the soccer club with doing that? Or?
I mean, the board members and I put this all together, so we all kind of here's our 3 options that we're going to put in front of you folks, and, so whatever one of those 3 options we decide on is how we would go forward. So we've weighed the pros and cons on every one of them.
So just to follow up, I think that the most important thing is we don't lose the soccer. and that we've got the field for the kids. I mean, we never want to do without that, and I think that's the most important thing going forward. So thank you for the options and looking at it realistic, what's going on.
Thanks.
Councillor Shapton.
Thank you, Your Worship, through to Colin. Echoing Councillor Tay's comments, certainly thank you guys for all of your work and dedication as well. If I thought for 1 second that just forgoing the $95,000 a year would completely fix the problem, I think that would be fine. But looking at Mr. Connor's report, which comes in at a tune of just about $440,000 for repairs, and looking at your future, unfortunately, I don't think that you guys will have the capital to fix it either, just to be honest and fair. I will fully support option number 2. I think you guys have done a heck of a job to try and fix this, and I know you've only been on for a few months, quite an undertaking in a few months, and you've done a great job. But looking at your future and your forecast and the decline in soccer, to carry and maintain a facility of this size and nature, just I don't think is where we go or what will work. You'll just be in a worse case if we keep kicking this down the road for another year. So again, I also want to ensure that some of the history that's gone on at Cowan Park is maintained. One of the things, there's been a lot of great work put into building that facility. It will be my goal that that is maintained, and I think that work can't be eradicated because of what's happening today. So my decision will be that the city takes this facility back over.
Thanks.
Councillor Accioni.
Thank you, Your Worship. Sorry, excuse me. And thank you to Colin again. I apologize for missing the presentation in January because for a lot of years, the Woodstock Soccer Club has been near and dear to my heart, as well as my kids, and been involved for a lot of years. So this is a real tough one. It's unfortunate, like Councillor Shapton said, if it was only the $95,000, I think this would be a no-brainer. But there's certainly a lot more expenses and a lot more work that's going to have to go into this to get it back to snuff. And I too will be supporting option 2. I think for those reasons.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Councillor Lauder.
Thank you, through the mayor, to Colin. I have to agree with what has been said here, but I also want to thank all the volunteers. It's been a real hard work job keeping this going, and I just hope that with us making a decision like the option 2, that these people will still be involved and come out and support the soccer, because we certainly do need soccer. Even with 2,000 people registered there, that's a lot of people that we have to serve, and so we want it all to work. So again, I will have to support option number 2. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Petter.
Through the mayor to Colin. Colin, under option 3, you mentioned that you would have to shut down the facility, which would eliminate the birthday parties and the weddings and what have you. Can you explain to me why you would do that and lose that revenue for the time that the facility would be open?
Yeah, sure. So it just comes down to math, really. So the amount of money that they're paying us to be there and the amount of time we have it open versus us closing it and not paying for utilities and staffing and all that stuff, we're in a net loss if we did a birthday party or something like that because of having it open for that many hours.
Through the mayor again, just to follow up, so you're actually losing money when you host weddings and birthday parties and what have you?
Yeah, give or take for most of the part, yeah.
Councillor Talbot.
Thank you, through your worship, through to Colin. Thank you for your presentation tonight and the options you presented, and to your board as well for the years of hard work and the fundraising efforts to put together the facility. I, like the others, will be supporting option 2, mainly because of the amount of the ask in option 1, and it's a lot of money. Like our grants that we give, say, to the Southgate Centre are more minimal compared to what would be required, as we've heard tonight, over $400,000 to get it up and going the way it should be. But I think that through option 2 we can have a relationship where the soccer club is still there, still using the facility, except we're going to look after it. And I remember the years of the fundraising for that, and it seemed like those years were long and lean and hard, but you guys never gave up. And for that, I thank you, because it did produce a nice building, a nice area, and when you drive by and see all the kids out there playing, it's a great reward to our whole community, so job well done. But I think it's gotten to the point now where it's time that we need to take it over and continue it on as a city facility. So I appreciate the fact that you actually had that as an option, and that you realized that that might have to be, or you probably even knew that that would probably be the one we would go with. So I do thank you.
Awesome, thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, with council's discretion, if you'd like, after this discussion, we could rearrange the order of the agenda and pull the staff report before we formally do our response here. Seeing a consensus, okay. Motion for report D1. Get that on the floor. Councillor Talbot.
I'll move that Woodstock City Council receive the Callan Park operational cost estimates reports as information.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Petter. Discussion? Okay, seeing none. Would we like to have any commentary from staff before we go back, before we vote on this motion and then go back to the delegation? Seeing consensus, okay. If we we'll ask staff for a small summary.
Thank you, Your Worship. Basically, in this report, it outlines the costing and costing variables for operation of Cowan, and it's broken down into its constituent parts. Outdoor fields, it gives you the capital cost to fix the fields, and we've broken that down into a 5-year increment. It is cost heavy on the first year because that has a fair bit of equipment costs attached to it, and this would bring all the fields up to standard. It also has the cost to operate the field, so that would be, instead of the capital budget, that would be the revenue. So this is your labor, line painting, fertilizing, budget lines, and then the report goes on to different aspects of operating the indoor facility. One operates the indoor facility from 11 a.m. till around 10:30 p.m. It's just, that's not the exact time probably, but it's a 10-hour day, Monday to Friday, and closed on the weekends and part of the summer. The other one that gets costed out is basically the major use hours only. So this is a 5-hour day, Monday to Friday. In this model, it's run very much like the Civic Center, the hockey arena. So if there's no major users in there, it's not open, and that is costed out as well. There is some consideration for future capital, other than maybe some lighting, which there is bulbs on site. There's just some identified future capital needs in this report as well, and that's it.
Councillor Shapton.
Your Worship, through to Mr. Connors. Mr. Connors, I'm just wondering if you could give us any indication, will there be any impact this year with us taking the fields over on this coming year's soccer season from a timing standpoint?
Your Worship, through to the councillor's question, depending on what council decides tonight as far as the next steps, we'll need to meet with soccer and talk about a transition plan. It is a very difficult time right now for our Parks Department, as we're just ramping up with the fields and the bookings and all that. So, you know, that will have some difficulty. But our priority would be to make sure that there is no bump. There might be a lot of confusion or a lot of work to do behind the scenes, but we'd really like to make sure that there's no problem with the public as far as the end user. So that's what we'd be working hard to do.
And just continuing on, just with regards to current bookings then with the facility, I'm sure there's those that have booked either their wedding or whatever. Will we be honoring those current reservations, or is there a plan for that at this point?
Your Worship, through to the councillor's question, as part of the transition plan, we would look at all of a budget, because nothing's been budgeted for us, and we'd need to look at the groups that have booked in currently, and if they can be moved or if they can run, and how much it would cost. So we'd factor them all in. Council may decide that if there's a wedding booked in, we'll have to open it for that, or look to have other accommodations. But some groups might be moved, others may not. But again, that's all going to be determined on what type of budget we get to run the facility in the short term.
Thank you very much.
Further questions of council? You've heard the motion. All those in favor? Carries. Unanimous. And now a motion on the delegation. Councillor Talbot, or whoever would like to raise their hand, except for Councillor Lauder. Go ahead, Councillor Lauder.
I'll move that to serve notice to terminate the agreement and develop a transition plan to have city staff assume operation of the facility, only open in the evening during the week. That Woodstock City Council directs staff to issue a written termination notice requiring the Woodstock Minor Soccer Club to rectify the defaulted payment within 60 days in accordance with the operation and financing agreement of Cowan Park. And further, that in the event the agreement is terminated as a result, staff be directed to prepare a report on a plan for financing and transition of operations of the facility to city staff for operation during major use operating hours only.
Thank you. And a seconder, Councillor Shapton. Discussion? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? Carries. Unanimous. And our next item is consideration of planning reports. Councillor Shapton.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, the Woodstock City Council received planning report number CP 2018-72 as information, and further that city and planning staff be directed to monitor the release of final implementation and regulation details by the province affecting cannabis retail stores and report to Woodstock City Council on a recommended approach to citing new cannabis retail stores in the city of Woodstock. And further that the city staff be directed to forward a copy of planning report number CP 2018-72 to the Woodstock Police Services, Downtown Woodstock BIA, and the Chamber of Commerce for review and consideration regarding the potential siting of a cannabis retail store within the city of Woodstock.
Thank you. And the seconder, Councillor Petter. Discussion? Councillor Lauder.
Would the planner like to speak to this? No, it's okay. No?
Through the Mayor to Councillor Lauder, I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone may have.
Okay. No, I don't have a question.
Okay. You've heard the motion. All those in favor? Carries. Unanimous. Next item on the agenda is consideration of correspondence. Councillor Accione.
Moved by myself, the Woodstock City Council requests the Province of Ontario commit to a high-speed rail environmental assessment terms of reference that as required under the Environmental Assessment Act explicitly include the full and comparative assessment of alternatives to HSR, including the optimization of existing rail corridors, such as the High Performance Rail, HPR alternative. And further, that the Premier of Ontario, the Minister of Transportation, the Minister of Environment and Climate Change, and the Executive Director, High Speed Rail Programs, MTO, be so advised.
Seconder, Councillor Lauder. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carries. Unanimous. And our next item of correspondence, Councillor Tate.
I'll move that the correspondence received from Kids Help Phone regarding the annual walk so kids can talk request for in-kind support for the use of the portable stage be supported.
Thank you. And the seconder, Councillor Petter. Discussion? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? Carries. Unanimous. Next item on the agenda is the 2017 Tender Awards. Councillor Talbot.
I'll move that Woodstock City Council receive the 2017 Tender Awards report as information.
Thank you. And a seconder, Councillor Lauder. Discussion? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? Carries. Unanimous. And for some of the viewers at home, if you want to look on the web at all of the different tenders from last year, you'll see how many of them actually came a little bit under budget, so that's nice to see. Next report, the Revenue Fund Budget Surplus, which is related to some of that. Councillor Petter.
I move the Woodstock City Council approves allocating the 2017 surplus of approximately $2,080,000 to the reserve for capital projects.
Seconded by Councillor Shapton. Discussion? Councillor Talbot.
I just think that the public should be aware of why we have such a large surplus, or at least a portion of it. I don't want them to think that we purposely overtax them so that we can have a large surplus. So in the report it states that Public Works had a surplus of $406,000, and that was a result of staffing shortages throughout 2017. Snow control was under budget by $148,000. Other departments contributed to it as well. Fire with $243,000, engineering with $112,000, and the clerks with $234,000. So it was either through things that's not being done, but it was not intentional. So we do plan for these things, and we don't plan to have a surplus.
Very good commentary. Thank you for that, Councillor Talbot. And I'd add one other part. It represents a little bit under 3% of our total budget. So within 3%, and we're on the good side. You've heard the motion. All those in favor? Carries. Unanimous. Next item is the 2017 Development Charge Reserve Fund Statements. Councillor Accioni.
Moved by myself, the Woodstock City Council received the 2017 Development Fund Reserve Funds report as information.
Seconder, Councillor Shapton. Discussion? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? Carries. Unanimous. Next item is the Woodstock Fire Hall Edition Tender Award. Councillor Talbot.
I move that Woodstock City Council authorizes a $200,000 increase to be funded by long-term debt for the Fire Hall addition, and notice is hereby given that the 2018-2022 capital budget is amended accordingly. And further, that City Council award the tender for the Fire Hall addition to Apcot Construction Limited in the amount of $2,003,320.50 inclusive of HST.
Thank you. And seconded by Councillor Accioni. Discussion? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? Carries. Unanimous. And next item is Labor Relations. Councillor Tate.
I move that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the 2018-2020 QP Local 1146 Outside Unit Collective Agreement, and further that City Council approve a compensation adjustment to salary and benefits for non-union staff pursuant to the settlement between the City and QP Local 1146 Outside Unit.
Thank you. And a seconder, Councillor Shapton. Discussion? Seeing none, you've heard the motion. All those in favor? Carries. Unanimous. And tonight, where will we go? We'll start with Councillor Tate.
Just a comment, since the last budget meeting, Councillor Lauder brought the motion forward for the doctors because we've got a shortage here, but I was reading an article this week about in CBC, and we're not alone. They say Ontario is short. There's 1 million patients without doctors, so we're not alone in Oxford County or Woodstock. And they said there's up to a 3-year wait for specialists. So I know a lot of people complain about it, and it doesn't make them feel better that there's a lot of people in the same boat, but it is a crisis in Ontario alone, and it's not just us. That's it.
Thank you. Councillor Accioni.
Thank you, Your Worship. I want to say happy spring now that it's snowing and everything out there. I couldn't believe it when I looked outside. It was just pure white today and yesterday. So I hope you kept your winter tires on. If not, my apologies if I told you it's safe to take them off now. So I'll take the blame for it. Canadian Cancer Society, of course, April is Daffodil Month. I was lucky enough I had a couple of minutes run back to the dealership and remember my daffodil. And sorry, I guess my wife sent me a message saying I guess I'm wearing it on the wrong side, so my apologies. That's what I get for dressing myself. I will be at Shoppers Drug Mart tomorrow. Please be generous anytime you see someone selling them. I know the other councillors are going to be doing it as well, so be generous. If you can't be generous, please volunteer. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lauder.
Thank you. I'll be at Sobeys tomorrow also selling them. So if you're in there, drop by and pick up your daffodil and support the cause. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Petter.
I've got two quick things, one good news and one bad news I want to talk about tonight. The good news, I want to thank all the organizers and especially Brad Jansen and Ann Ash and all the city staff and the Calvary Church for the Easter egg hunt. I was there with my granddaughter who had a great time. It was so well organized. This thing is, they've got all the kinks out of it from people that were there 4 or 5 years ago when there was melee with people running all around the place. It's so organized and so much fun for the kids. They have furry animals dressed up and minions are running around, and the rumor was that Councillor Shapton was in the minion suit, and I think it might possibly be true. Or he really don't have to dress up. You kind of look like a minion. So anyway, I just want to thank all those people. They did a tremendous job. Now the bad news. And I think it's time that this council step up to the plate and solve this problem. It's something that we've talked about a lot of times. It's been talked about tonight. It's something that we've got to address. I was sitting in my living room watching the Masters, and it was snowing outside. We have got to do something about snow after April 1st. And it's up to this council to do something about it. If I could remind you, February the 2nd, which is Groundhog Day, we get all excited hoping that these little rodents come out of their hole, Puxatawny Phil and Chilly Willy or whatever their names are, and we want them to say there's going to be an early spring. We're disappointed when they say that there's 6 weeks left in winter. This is 9 weeks, folks. 9 weeks since these little rodents came out of their hole, and it's still snowing. Something has got to be done. We have to address this. And I hope the rest of the councilors come up with an idea. We may have to put a bubble over the entire city. I don't know. But there's too many golfers and too many snowbirds coming back, and it's still snowing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Petter. Now, I'm sure the clerk would like to know if this is going to be in the form of a notice of motion to be dealt with at our next meeting.
I'm just working on it now. We'll get together.
Thank you very much. Councillor Shapton.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a few quick things. Just to remind everyone, tomorrow at 5 p.m. is your last chance to purchase Blue Jays tickets for Woodstock Day at the Rogers Center. This year it's April 29th, 2018, game time at 1:07. You can pick up your tickets either in person at the community complex, or you can go online and find it at the City Woodstock webpage. Other than that, just want to remind everyone that with Councillor Petter's new motion, that I'm sure good weather will be around the corner, just not this weekend. So watch out for the kids because they are starting to play again, and be careful. Be careful with them out there. Other than that, have a great couple weeks. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Talbot.
Thank you, Worship. you're going to have to wait to dust off your golf clubs, I think. But the bikes were out on the weekend, so that was really nice. I just wanted to congratulate Indwell on their grand opening today. I got to slip in during the middle of speeches and have a private quick tour of the 2 of the new units over there, as I had to come back for a conference call. But what a great facility, an addition that they have put on, and really have done a great job with the addition. So hats off to them for it. They were all filled, and these people opened their doors and allowed us to go in and have a look, and I thought that was very wonderful of them as well too. And I can't get over the views when you're looking out of the rooms. They have a community room on the top floor, and you can just see over such a great portion of the city and the beautiful buildings. Like it is a great location to have people living in the downtown core. So hats off to Indwell. Thank you.
Well, I would like to start by saying that what an amazing city we have. Over the last few weeks, the number of individuals that I've talked to who have followed some of our streaming videos and curious about budgets and everything else, the questions I get to answer, it's been really great. Last council meeting, you heard me talk about the water festival, and I could have used some of that water the very next day. I had a whole bunch of questions at College Ave Secondary School that the students came up with. I guess there's a television show called Hot Topics or something, so you have to answer a question and eat a hot wing at the same time, and each question gets harder and each hot sauce gets hotter, and they did an amazing job. I tolerate spice and high heat. My children, you know, are always amazed when they see me using the hot sauce. But I tell you, the Scolio units of heat on those last few wings, wow, I was speechless and could barely answer their questions. But what a lot of fun that is. Now, we've had, as Councillor Talbot mentioned, the Indwell opening today, an open house for the second phase there. And we also have Indwell doing a great project of renewal at Blossom Park. They're doing renovation, a new project, a new build there that'll be passive standard. And you've heard me talk about the International Renewable Energy Academy before, and they're all here in the city of Woodstock this week. And in fact, while this council meeting's going on, they are listening to Indwell talk about what that building, the new building, will look like, where the individual apartments, the total utility bill for the year for heat and electricity, the whole 9 yards, will be less than $50 a person. All because of using these great new technologies and the smart resources that we have here in our community from all of the different industry partners at Smart Energy Oxford, as well as willing partners like Indwell that not only want to create good apartments and affordable housing in our community, but create lifestyle choices for individuals that improve their quality of life and make sure they have more money to put food on the table. So what a great community we have doing projects like that. And with that, I'd ask for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Petter, seconded by Councillor Shapton. All those in favor? We are adjourned.